Good morning, West Valley. Welcome out here to our wonderful gathering. We hope you enjoy the day, and we're going to get this all started with a song called This Is the Day featuring Kathy, and we'd like to get it going. Ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, a day to be seized, yeah. A day I can feel my spirit set free. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and high up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day all my dreams come true. Feel the Spirit working its way through. Yes, this is the day. It's time to fly higher and high up in the sky. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad in it.
All right, Rod. Good morning. Welcome to West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. My name is Reverend Clyde Goins. I'm your assistant minister here, and I am really happy to be here, and I'm really happy to see you. And I don't see John Kruger. Is John Kruger in the house? I thought I saw him. There he is. He has a special story he'll be sharing here shortly. And I'll share with you in just a second. But anyways, we want to welcome you here on this beautiful Sunday morning, and where we come together every Sunday to remember our truth, that we're whole, perfect, and complete just the way we are. So our Sundays are always unfolding, and our services are always designed perfectly for us. And so I know Reverend Karen will have a beautiful message for us, and Susan is doing the invocation today. So it and the Bradfords are singing the beautiful music. So we've got a full Sunday service show for you. But before we do that, I want to remind you we're still collecting fries. Remember my little fries story here, right? So if you go into Papke Hall and you don't see your name on the wall and you want to fill out a fries donation for our center, please see me. I will help you get. The center will get that money once a quarter. We get that money once a quarter. Is going to share a story with us. Come on up, John. Our theme this year is being remarkable, right? And so, again, we're looking for remarkable stories. And this morning when John and I and Fred were sitting there talking business, he had to share this remarkable story. So I said, this is the perfect story to start off our Sunday service. So I'm going to let him share the story with you.
Yeah. Tell my wife that, would you, please? Anyway, this morning, how many watch CBS Sunday mornings on CBS? Well, if you were watching this morning, you would have heard about this story about this. What do you call a female goose? A goose? A goose, a gander. Anyway, there was this female goose that was would always walk up to this woman's house. She had these glass panels on her doors and just stare at herself all the time, all day long. She just stared at herself because she was so lonely. She didn't have anybody to share with. And there was something about a headstone, too. She'd go out and look at these headstones and see herself reflecting in the headstones. So this lady decided to put an ad in the paper. And so she put this ad in the paper, lonely goose looking for a mate, yada, yada, yada. It went on and on and on. And it was really a beautiful story. And lo and behold, there was a couple that had a male goose that had just lost his partner. And so he brought him over, and when they met, the female goose opened up her wings to meet him with her wings outstretched, and the lady said that they've been inseparable ever since. So just love prevails across every aspect of our life, doesn't it?
All right. Thank you, John. So the remarkable story is not about the goose, just to be clear. It's about the woman, the act of kindness that woman provided to that goose, which was very beautiful. So wonderful, loving story. So thanks, John. All right. So let's say our vision statement together. We are a loving, joy-filled community honoring the many paths to God as we learn and live the science of mind principles. And so it is. So if you can just sit back, relax, open up your hearts and minds for the Bradford's beautiful music and Reverend Karen's beautiful message. Thank you.
So just take a deep breath.
I will make a quiet place within my heart. I will wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know.
I will make a quiet place within my mind. I will wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord.
Be still, my soul, be still. Be still, my soul, be still. Be still and know. I will make a quiet place within my life, and I will wait upon the Lord. Wait upon the Lord. I will make a quiet place.
As we breathe in that ever-loving presence, that divine intelligence, we just soak it all in right here and now. God is all there is. In this moment, in this second, that presence of love and joy and ease is expressing itself right here, right now, through each and every one of us. Each and every fiber of my being and yours are in complete alignment with that divine expression of God. As I come here today to know and open myself up to a greater loving and a greater knowing of who I am and all that is unfolding is in that divine and perfect reverence of peace and tranquility and emergence. We open ourselves up to the knowingness that God is expressing itself with all the love and joy in the world, expressing itself as greatness, as good, as peace, and as joy. I know this, I accept this, and I say thank you, God. Thank you, God, for the knowingness that we come together in celebration of love and joy, and we open ourselves up to the greater knowingness. I release this word into universal law, knowing that all that joy is unfolding right here and now as our hearts and our minds are open. I say thank you, God, and together we say, and so it is. Evolution is the passing of thought into manifestation. We are on the verge of disclosing a spiritual universe and ultimately conclude that what we call the physical universe is a spontaneous emergence through evolution of inner forces which cannot be explained, but which must be accepted. How then can we doubt that the very mind which we now use is intelligent principle from which all life draws its power to be and its intelligence to express? The furtherance of evolution depends on our ability to sense the unity of nature and her forces. When the knowledge of this unity comes alike to all, the tread of armies will cease, and the bugle call will echo the soft notes of brotherly love.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. see babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Brava, brava, exquisite. What a beautiful voistress we have this morning. Man, you sounded good, Miss Kathy. Good morning. You really did multiply in the dark today. There's a bunch more of you from when we started, and so nice to see that. Welcome to the West Valley Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Karen Rice, and I am the leader of this community, and I happily rise to speak to you today because I have something sort of, well, I always find it fun, but it's very practical, something you can use and take, and I heard it in the reading, and I heard it in the music. What an exquisite line, that part where it says the gray of the gray of the day, and then the sacred dark of the night. Oh, I don't think I ever really caught that line before. Is that an authentic line? And that, what a beautiful, that just really touched me, because, it's often the dark night of the soul that really causes us to blossom and grow. And you got to tell me, was that reading taken from the general summary? Can you tell me what chapter that was in? Just reach down and shout it out when you got it there. So the title of my message today is Successive Degrees. Oh, you see, that is the chapter. Reverend Clyde, are you paying attention here? She took that from the chapter in the Science of Mind textbook on the body. And I'm telling you, we skip that physical stuff in that when we're reading that book. We like the principle of it. But in that, there's 2 chapters of it. And they're kind of long, actually. I find the best stuff in those chapters where you can look in the index and you can go, oh, man, I've got this sore throat going on. And he'll, and then he gives you this guidance on how to get back into the flow of circulation or whatever it is. He attaches beautifully principle to like the physical workings, and it's exactly what I'm talking about today, because it's the way that we, in our individuality, are mirroring the greater universe, the way nature works all the time and just intuitively in life. So we're talking about successive degrees, because I had this idea that sometimes it's helpful to break life down into smaller chunks so that we can, process it. We can take it in and digest our situations a little better. So I thought the title was a bit obscure and yet extremely distinct, because it's exactly the successive degrees, the unfolding of successive degrees that creates all transformation in life, including the transformation of our lives. And I believe that we have such a gorgeous teaching. The entire purpose of our philosophy is that we believe that our product is a changed human life. We're all about this idea of transformation, and I always feel, or often feel, that one of my goals is to make sure that you're paying attention to the transformation in your own life. So that's specifically what we're going to do this morning. And therefore, I think it's helpful for me to say that I believe that this element of our teaching, based on transformation and emergence and the way that evolution happens in the world — I love saying evolution on a church pulpit. I have to be honest, the rebel in me thinks it's so fun to talk about evolution. But anytime, sweetie, you got it with that hat. I love the rebel. See, we sometimes we have to let our rebels come out and play. Yeah, right. I miss my days at bike night and when I used to be able to do that Harley thing. That was my rebel. I used to tell people if I let her come out and play on Thursdays, I'll be better behaved on the pulpit on Sunday. So there's an element of our teaching that I value, and that's what it is. That's that way that we can appreciate that all of humanity is in this constant state of advancement. And I know it doesn't necessarily feel like that, especially in recent months and years. It does not feel like we are advancing. In fact, sometimes it feels like we're going in the wrong direction. But remember that life is often like that. Even the process of birth, when a woman is giving birth to the baby, it's like 2 steps forward and a step back, and it looks like, oh, what's happening? We were making progress and, now we're not. But that's the way life is. Life is that emergence, that process of emergence in all evolution takes its time and has its seasons. So Dr. Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of this teaching, he synthesized. He didn't start a new religion. He wanted simply to show up and give great lectures in big lecture halls and talk to people about universal truths. And he spent his whole life synthesizing the truths that every religion has in common, and that's what we're based upon. And from that sort of spiritual and philosophical perspective, we find that many of the great thinkers, the mystics of the ages, the deeply open-minded spiritual leaders and theologians had a similar theory, and that is that consciousness, Dr. Holmes says this frequently, that consciousness is upward, that the consciousness of humanity and of us as individuals is constantly rising in this sort of upward and expanding circle that opens us to greater and greater wisdom. So here's a quote from Holmes. He said that all evolution is an awakening and the development of greater possibility. And so I really invite you this morning to hunker down and anchor yourself in those ideas of that idea of evolution as the advancement of the consciousness of humanity. And I'm going to give you some great examples to how we can see that in our own life. It's the development of all possibilities that lie in our future, and when we make an opening for it, it's like in quantum physics, they say it collapses into reality. It just comes into form. And so we align ourselves to principles that speak this way. Even if you only examined your own life, you would be able to witness your own growth, the advancement of your own consciousness. For I know personally that scripture that says, when I was a babe, I behaved as a babe, And so we sort of can all relate to that any time we acquire more information and more knowledge and begin to apply it in our life and use it, then we make better choices than we had perhaps made in the past. So what I know is that today I know so many things, maybe more than any other time in my life. This year, as I look back over the past year of my own personal growth, I know all kinds of things I didn't dream I would know right now. And then what that tells me, if I can be kind and compassionate with myself, is that in 1 year from now, I will know all kinds of things that I don't know right now. And that's the way life is. Nothing is broken or wrong or out of place. We are just ever evolving in our own sort of growth process. Now, when I do that with loving kindness, when I examine my life with a lot of loving kindness, I can begin to practice self-compassion and not be so critical on the decisions I made or the way I managed myself through a difficult time. And I can, with great self-compassion, love myself through that, accept myself where I'm at, and expect that I'm going to, grow in leaps and bounds because that's the way it works. And when I can be more self-compassionate, then I can have more more compassion. So it does grow in successive degrees, I'm told. But then I can be more compassionate with all the other people that I encounter in my own life. You begin to realize that pretty much everybody is always doing the best they can with what they have. It's a good way to learn to respect each other at a higher level. Do you ever think back in your life? I hope I'm not the only one that does this. Do you ever think back in your life and get kind of embarrassed when you think of some of the things you used to believe or some of the mistakes you made? I can remember some things I said with great certainty that, no, that's not how it is. It's this way. And then time passes and you realize, oh, I was so wrong. And it's embarrassing, It kind of reminds me of like starting a new job. We've all been there. First day, so there's this great victory when you find out you've been hired. They chose you out of all the candidates, that you get the new job. But then the first day of work comes, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I hope I know enough, and I hope I didn't fake my way through the interview so much that they're going to fire me as soon as they find out I don't know all that. And all those insecurities. I hate the first day on a new job. You don't even know where to put your purse or your lunch, and even if you come with a really good understanding of the whatever place you're working at, you don't know how they do it, And so you have to get your feet wet, and you have to get to know the people, and you have to find a way to function. And I saw once, I'm not sure if it was something I watched on TV. It might have been a podcast that was filmed, and where they were saying even the most secure CEO does not have a bag of tricks, does not open a drawer and just have all the answers, but we all fake it. We all go in and we try and act as confident as we can because after all, they just hired us and they're paying us to do this. And then we learn and we grow, and we hopefully will ask questions. Nothing's worse than a new employee that does not, well, I have two problems when I'm training new people. They need to take notes or I lose respect for them right away. Nobody can remember all that. They need to take notes and they need to ask questions, right? We need clarity. So we've all been in that situation where we're just kind of faking it till we make it, and then we go, and then I remember going home at night going, man, I got all kinds of things I got to figure out before morning. I can't let them know I didn't know this or that. And that's the way life goes. That is, it's a humbling posture to admit that we don't know everything. And so, we just do the best we can. A couple of years ago, I was doing a Sunday sermon service. And after the service was complete, I went in my office, and there was somebody in the audience that had once been a congregant here. But she had only been here a short time after I was hired, and I became the new minister. So, and then she moved out of state. So she happened to be in town. My hunch is, I don't think she really liked me much. My hunch is she was staying with a friend that was a congregant still, and that person probably brought her to church, but she wanted to talk to me after service. So she makes her way back to my office, and she says, Reverend Karen, you have improved so much in the last 10 years. I can't even believe you're the same person that was here speaking, 10 years ago when I used to be here. And so I did not find that complimentary. But I didn't tell her. She might have been able to read my face. That would have been a hard one to bluff through. But I remember thinking like, well, you've probably changed a lot in 10 years too. We might actually like each other if we'd give each other a chance. Not quite like that, but it was just stunning to me that somebody would say, well, of course you've grown. If you haven't grown, if you've been doing something for as long as this, then you should have a level of skill, because there are successive degrees of advancement that just come with the experience of of doing what you do again and again. So, and by the way, you know what I learned that day was the secret is in that situation, in many situations, is to not be offended. To not be offended at all, but to just keep growing. So, you know, I feel it and I feel a little criticized. What do I want to do with that? I want to keep growing. I don't want to stop there. I don't want to personalize it as much as quickly as possible. I want to find my way out of that hole. And then I wanted to also say this, and that is that, can you tell I haven't worn heels in a while? My little wobble. Are you worried? There's a dip in the floor, not my fault, right? I used to pull it off, really skilled, you know.
But you've improved so much.
Thank you, Reverend Susan. Spoken like a true minister. Beyond our individual lives, and the decisions we make and the encounters we have and the way that we are growing our own consciousness, that we are having that spiral expansion and that upward movement, beyond that, there is a way that we are also a part of the whole, that we make a collective consciousness here in this community, but we are a part of the greater collective consciousness of all of humanity. And so in every way that we grow and change in our own lives, in every way we have insight on our own behavior or our own edge of growth, wherever we seem to be growing in our personal lives. In every way that we make a choice and an intention to just do a little better than we did the last time, we are helping to grow the consciousness of humanity bit by bit, piece by piece, in successive degrees to the advancement of humanity. So when I speak that way, it reminds me that I want to be careful that I don't grow more bitter when life disappoints me. And a lot of things have happened to all of us in the last few years, and it could be really easy to find some bitterness. And I would say that there probably is no one who hasn't been impacted in a challenging way by just our decisions on where we stand on some of the things that we've been through, or the way we talk about it, how we experience things different from each other, and yet we've always all been in the same situation, sharing the same things, but now we have this, a global experience that very few generations have an opportunity to live through in the way that we have. So, I like to be part of that greater whole. I love that our mission or our vision, our statement for all centers for spiritual living, that we talk about a world that works for everyone. And the way I can do my part is by being attentive to those bit-by-bit pieces I add to the bigger consciousness of humanity. I think it's really helpful for us to stop for a minute and look at ways the consciousness of humanity has changed. You want to talk about that a minute? I want to tell you what I did. I Googled, no? You don't? Is that a protest? We're going there anyway. It's me in the high heels. No, I thought it would be fun to look at things that have changed in our lifetime. Some of you might be a little young to remember some of these things, but most of us were taught in school some of these things. I did a Google search on things we once believed. I actually learned a couple things that I didn't expect to learn. Did you know that camels do not actually store water in their humps? They don't. They have oval-shaped red blood cells, and that's where all the extra water is stored that they need. And their humps are pure fat, and the humps on a camel can feed off of the fat in those humps for 3 months. I wonder what a beer belly does. It's like, did that just pop in your head too? you? I'm sorry. I did not plan to say that out loud, but.
It doesn't last that long.
Spoken with such authority. Do you know that the blood in your body is not actually blue? We used to say, oh, it's blue, but when you get cut, the oxygen makes it look red. No, it's just the vessels look blue. It's not, your blood's not blue. Here's a good one that some of you will be really happy to know this isn't true. If you swallow your gum, it does not take 7 years to digest it. If you drop a penny from the Empire State Building, it will not kill somebody. It might sting, but it will not kill you because of the drag force and all that. And here's one I did not know. The dark side of the moon. Okay, so now here, the Earth orbits and the moon. Our moon follows us faithfully, and always we are looking at the same side of the moon, and then we see it in different phases depending on all of that. So what we know is that the moon is locked to us by what they call a tidal force, and we only see one side of it, but sunlight falls on every side of it from time to time. I didn't know that. I thought it was always dark. I think those astronauts confused us in the 60s. On a more serious note, one of the most striking changes in medical advancement happened in the 1800s. Anybody want to take a guess at what we discovered in the 1800s that changed medicine completely? Nope, not penicillin. Say it again. Yes. Is that what you were going to say, Mary? So all the nurses in the it was wash your hands. So in the late 1700s in Europe and in America, they had hospitals that were creating wards, childbirth wards, where formerly and still in those days it was more common to have a midwife come to your house, but they created these wings of hospitals or wards where it was mostly for underprivileged women, including prostitutes, and they would just be lined up in beds, and the doctors would go directly from doing autopsies into examining these women, and we had this terrible, almost like an epidemic of child bed fever, they called it. It's actually puerperal, but it's very hard for me to say that. All those R's get in the way. So child bed fever is what they called it. They were pretty sure it was contagious because in some wards in hospitals, they were the average death rate of the women was 20 to 25% of the women were dying. And in hospitals where they really did not, they didn't manage it at all, in some hospitals they would lose 100% of the women in a ward. Along comes Dr. Semmelweis, Ignaz Semmelweis, a Hungarian doctor who became an obstetrician in Vienna. And he's watching what's going on, and he's thinking, maybe we need to just do some kind of acidic hand wash. And he did he made up his own concoction. He had a ward in Vienna that was just his. It was a chlorinated lime solution that he would wash his hands with, and immediately the death rate began to drop, that they no longer had that high percentage. And he's now starting to talk to his colleagues like, hey, you guys, wash your hands. And you know what happened? They were so angry at him. It sounded so foolish, but here's the big deal, and I wonder if we can't use this in our lives, in the way we get defensive today. If you think about how could we apply this in our own lives? They were insulted because it sounded to them like he was saying, you guys are not clean. And these were physicians who considered themselves gentlemen, and they defended their honor. Of course we're clean. And they would not consider it could be something as simple as washing their hands, because in the consciousness that had developed only so far at that time, they did not understand germ theory. This was the beginning of looking at the way disease transfers from one person to another. They did not have that. 3 little words: wash your hands. And they were so cruel to him that he went mad and was put in an insane asylum. He was wrestled into a straitjacket. There was a cut on his arm, and he died from the very infection, though he didn't get it from there. He died from a blood infection that he was saving lives in the same way. And, that's the way it happens. And then, of course, time went on, and they kept looking at the numbers and realizing it was a simple change that could be made. Scientific methods and medical opinions, when they are new, put people in conflict. And we completely understand that because of what we have seen happen. Now, we understand more clearly today than they did in the 1800s that science is an ongoing process. And I love that very theory that the scientist might have something he or she really wants to prove, but they don't mind being wrong. Because being wrong, like Thomas Edison often said, we quote, he probably didn't say it often, but we quote him often, that every failure took him a step closer to creating the incandescent light bulb. So we understand that it's an ongoing process. And as we moved through the pandemic, think of all the professional, brilliant, the scientists and the physicians and the deep thinkers that were now put on the spot right now. We have to find a way to get through this, and we pull all our ideas, and we knew nothing. We still don't know it all. And the professional community scrambled in remarkable ways. I have so much respect for those first responders. I have so much respect for them. So then you have the rest of us, and we're just watching the news. Apparently, we watch the news a lot on Sunday mornings. And by the way, John Kruger that was so wonderful. You told that story so much better than Reverend Clyde would have told it. Thank you. Hey, I'm thinking you have a new sidekick, Reverend Clyde. You just did something wonderful. He's really improving. But did you wash your hands? But what I want to say is, it's absolutely human for us to be hesitant. I am not ever, I often think, if I was alive when Orville and Wilbur, thank you. I knew I wouldn't be able to remember. Orville and Wilbur are like flying that airplane and they're offering people free rides. I would not have been first in line. I'm just going to say, I want to see it a long time. I'm not even sure in that if I could have lived that generation to have been comfortable to do such a thing. But the consciousness of humanity shifts, and we begin to see that the world is our oyster. And if we are willing to get up in an aircraft, we can get from here to there. And, and I could have 4 or 5 days with my sister from Michigan. And, last Sunday she was here, and today she's feeding her sheep and, taking care of the horse and the picking eggs out of the chicken coop and all the things she does on the farm. So there's a word for those people. See, we need those people. Did we not need those first people that were willing to say yes in the pandemic? Like, okay, I'll do it. So I'm like, not me. I'm not going to be the first to go out there and do that. But we need those people who do things first. We have a name for them. We call them early adapters or first adapters. This probably will not apply to you. Just don't even listen. You either, Colleen, probably not you. If you lived in, when you were a kid, if you were the first family on your street to get a color TV, your dad or your mom were first adapters or early adapters. right? If you were the first one that bought a hybrid car, a few years back, you're probably an early adapter. Here's me. It's like, oh, Microsoft has a new upgrade. I'll wait. I'll let all you guys work out the kinks, then I will upgrade, right? So I'm not a first adapter, but I'm not, I'm slow. But I'm not closed. There are some things we close our minds to, right? Because you got your own values, and all of our values are different. But I like to get there, but I like to do it my way. So we all do, I think. So we are in this gorgeous, ripe time of life on the planet, where we have all these illustrations of successive degrees of development and advancement of consciousness, and how we think and how we get better and better at lots of things. Here's a quote from Dr. Ernest Holmes, and in fact, this quote is where I snatched that little, those words, successive degrees. Holmes said in the book, Can We Talk to God? Yes, we can. I'm going to be quoting from that book all year. It's going to be so fun. You guys are going to be so trained. The evolution of the human race, the evolution of humanity, is a process whereby intelligence passes by successive degrees of incarnation into the human mind. What is that intelligence? It's the energy in all of life. It's what makes a plant grow to the sun. Right? It's what makes a seed open in the earth when you plant it. And so just as we can see that those patterns in nature, those patterns are inherent in our own lives, in the way we express life in our personal lives. So intelligence is always available. The mind of God, these lofty ideas, as well as the qualities of God, like peace and love and joy and goodness, and this, you could go on for a long time naming these divine qualities. It comes in little bits and pieces, and when we embody some new truth, it's like it dawns upon your mind. It's like, oh, I get that now. So the beautiful definition I read a minute ago, evolution, Holmes again, is the awakening and the development of greater possibilities. Then we can see that we are developing an awareness in a step-by-step process. One of my first teachers was Claudette. She taught practitioner classes, and she used to always say to us, consciousness is cumulative. Consciousness is cumulative. And I did that. I'd always go, what the hell is she talking about? What does that mean? I mean, I understand you accumulate, but what is that? And now I see it's everything we're talking about today, right? Wilbur and Orville had a thought, tested it out, and they weren't the only ones. There were other people testing out aircraft at that same time period. Just see, I look at the right people to get the nod. Am I still online? Am I still correct? That there were others. It was an idea whose time had come, right? Nature doesn't care who does it. When it's ready, it will. There's always more than one person that thinks. Sometimes, like when they have fights over lyrics and who wrote a song, and sometimes I wonder if maybe they both didn't get it at the same time, rather than one stole it from another. I don't know. It's just the way I think some days. So all of that leads to greater and greater possibilities. But Claudette said consciousness is cumulative. It builds. It grows. Each thing adds to your ability to perceive the next higher concept. But we grow it through our experience of it. So, what that tells me is sometimes our experiences are so yummy and sometimes they aren't. Right? Sometimes we have harsh experiences, or maybe we think even that we have failed in some way, but it is the experiential movement of life in us, trying to express through us, in which we learn. It is exactly how we grow step by step and bit by bit. It's the whole point of what I'm saying today. So just as Jesus said, judge not by appearances. We can tell our sad story for a while, but at some point we better start looking for the beauty in what we have learned from walking through that experience. In fact, sometimes, in order to open up to new possibilities, we have to relinquish old beliefs. There's a necessity to let go of the beliefs that are holding us back or keeping us small. Ralph Waldo Emerson, talk about a rebel. Oh, that boy was a rebel. He'd have yeehawed. He wouldn't have yeehawed with you. I think he was a little sophisticated in the way I look at who I think he was. He would totally have been an early adapter. I would see him as an early adapter. So we think of him as a transcendentalist, which I studied first through literature until I bumped into it in my spiritual studies. And I understand that the transcendentalists they were definitely edgy rebels. The transcendentalists came out of the deists. The deists were the founding fathers who dared to put government and spirituality in the same, context. It's kind of they had a different way of thinking about things. Do you know that Thomas Jefferson sat in the White House he was a deist, and he would take his Bible and he had a razor blade and he would cut out any of the passages in the gospel that he didn't think were real. Right? And he made his own Bible, cutting and pasting in the old-fashioned way. They call it the Jefferson Bible. You can buy it now. Amazon will sell it to you. Very interesting. While he was serving as president of the nation. So the deists were a bit scandalous, in the way they thought, and they dared to think out of the box. And the transcendentalists, and by the way, Ralph Waldo Emerson is often called the father of transcendentalism, but he did not consider himself to be a transcendentalist. He just kind of, did it so well that he got all the credit for it. And he didn't want to fit. He didn't want to fit in any box. But when Ernest Holmes, Emerson is one of three important influences on this teaching. Emerson is 1/3 of the value of how our teaching came together. And Holmes discovered Ralph Waldo when he was 17 or 18 years old. He didn't meet Emerson. They lived in different time periods. But he read the Emerson essays at his brother's house. This is Dr. Holmes. And he so came alive and said, this is exactly the way I think. This makes sense of everything I already believe. And, the essays are so meaningful to me. And his mother, who was likely dabbled in transcendentalism. We don't know that for sure, but it seems like, as you look at their historical story, that the mom probably knew a lot about it. The mother says to Ernest Holmes, her brilliant young son, she says to him, be careful when you study Emerson. Do me a favor, don't tell anybody you're studying Emerson. It's still sort of scandalous. And so I doubt that he kept it to himself, but you can see that they were really outsiders, right? So Emerson wrote these words. This is quite lovely. He said, "We must believe that our beliefs can change. We must believe that our beliefs can change. Only by preferring truth over our last apprehension of truth do we grow. Only as we look at what we believed last year and measure it to what we believe and think now. It's so useful. So much of our teaching is based on that willingness to look at our beliefs. So I ask you this. I have 3 questions for you. Just think about them. Don't answer them out loud. When was the last time you changed your mind about something? Are you willing to look at your beliefs? And the third question is, how do you evaluate new information? See, what I know about myself is that sometimes new information feels like a slap, and there are times where I could be sitting in a meeting here at church. We can have a board meeting, and Reverend Clyde will say something, and I will feel, or anybody could say something, and I will feel immediately like, no, we can't do that because, and I might even say it out loud. But I don't close my mind. I sleep on it, and I pray on it. I may not come around while we're sitting in that meeting, but I will revisit it, and we will talk about it from a completely different perspective because we will have risen through that time and that space and that prayer. So I may be slow, but I'm open, and that's all any of us really needs, is to maintain a sense of being open. Holmes used to say, be open at the top. Are we open at the top? What I absolutely know is that to achieve positive success, we have to have positive faith and positive practice. See, that's why the Emma Curtis Hopkins notebook, the 40-day project that this community has embarked upon together as a community, we're looking at that. Man, I've been doing those lessons daily, and I wrote them. And I am seeing something magnificent in the simplicity of taking a tiny little piece, a tiny little bite, day by day, and following those instructions, because it is with that positive practice, day by day, that we are building the positive faith. And so what we have agreed as a community is that we are fasting during the season of Lent. We are fasting from negativity. And that does not mean we won't have a negative thought here and there, or even speak a dark opinion, perhaps. But what it means is we will be aware of it, and we will look for the ways in which we can then be positive and counter the negativity that's pouring into the world from our thoughts, and shift it to a more positive. And I think it's doing wonders for this community. Thank you for your feedback. I have 21 cards that you have returned to me that I am praying on every day, and it's not too late to give me your intention card if you would like to be a part of that process where I hold your card and say your name in my prayers every day and for the full 40 days. Well, actually, if you start now, you'll have missed a week, but it's not too late to start. And 18, Sue Witter took them when she spoke last weekend in Lake Havasu City, and we have 18 of our sister church friends that are doing the program with us as well. Here's what we know. Good grows as we circulate it. Good grows as we circulate it. It's a law. We call it the law of circulation. It's about giving and receiving. And you know what? I have been told that every sacred text includes some variation of that truth. That there's something important in giving and receiving. And what that means is, this is not intellectual. This is not me reading something really wonderful that's changing my life and then trying to convince all of you to believe it too. This is about our willingness to have an experience of that goodness, to receive it, to allow some piece of beauty or some random act of kindness that's been bestowed upon us, to receive it, even if it's a compliment. We take it in and we feel it. We embody the essence of it, and then we are equipped to give it back, to return it into the world again. Not to the same person, but that we keep it going, right? How do they say you pay it back? but you move it forward. That's it. Thank you. You move it forward. And so we each have the opportunity to do it, but it's in our willingness to have the experience of it. So when we say random things like God cannot have the experience of love if we don't practice love with each other, that's why God created us, and that's why God created love, so that it could be the delight of God to have the experience. We are a vital part of that process. We have to give it, and we have to receive it. Each of us is responsible for promoting the growth of good on the planet. And, that just makes me think that if I'm just complaining about the lack of good that I can't see, I want to stop, and I want to go back to the beginning and recognize that right where I am, God is, and therefore, right where I am, God's good has to be too. I might have to dig a little deeper, but it's there. It's not just about being more positive. It's about really being a part of the exchange of beauty and joy and goodness. These things require recognition on our part in order to bloom forth and be alive, in order to be real and as an activity on this planet. If I allow even the tiniest bit of beauty to creep into my life, even if I'm having a hard day or I'm feeling grumpy, if I allow the tiniest piece of beauty or goodness or joy to be in my life, then I have helped the flow of that quality on this planet to be more apparent. It's when we give beauty a home within ourself. We give love a home within us. Dr. Holmes said, thought and conscious receptivity, the receiving in that conscious way, intending to receive the good and the joy and the beauty and the peace that's everywhere present, looking for it, embodying it, taking it in, sensing it. That's what makes universal possibility expand in every direction. It brings possible things into being. I loved the joyful outlook of Dr. Holmes when he said things like this. To be rich is to know that God is our source, that there is opulent supply. Look at the leaves on a tree and try and count them. Observe the lavish wastefulness in nature and know that the flower does not bloom for the beauty of it, it blooms of necessity. Think about it. When the flower blooms, it's the way it releases the seeds for the next season, right? The seed for the next flower is released in the bloom. Can we notice that? Can we feel the wisdom in that? Can we see the Holy Spirit in it, the sacredness of it, because it is why life continues. There is an intelligence in the universe that is always feeding us. And Holmes said that if the wisdom of the universe would be poured upon us, we could still only receive what we understand. So let us join together in amplifying what we are willing to ponder and think about and understand and experience in our own relationship with life, in the giving and the receiving. And that's what I wanted to say today. And I think we should anchor those words in the words of prayer. So just get comfortable where you're seated. And begin to sense the sacred activity of life in this very room. In these beautiful moments where we do indeed recall that God is right here in this very room. I feel the love of God within me, and I know it is that action of life. It is the divine truth of life desiring expression and revealing. Not just through the words of this prayer, but through the activities of all of life. In this gorgeous example of the way nature so easily does what needs to be done. That there is beauty in the bloom, but that the bloom comes so that there will be future plantings. That there is this successive development that allows us to see the continuity of life, each level building upon the next, until we recognize that there is a principle that is ascending and expanding in this upward spiral movement, that we are not who we were a year ago, nor will we be who we are now in the year to come. For there is something magnificent unfolding in this wisdom that is always given to us, this grace of God that streams into our lives. I feel that love of God, and I recognize it as a healing force within me. And as that is true for me, it is true for every living being, that there is something absolutely innate that insists on life, that insists on healing, that insists on revealing greater and greater expressions of life, even through the different seasons. So we are comfortable in recognizing the sacredness in the dark night and knowing that morning always comes, and the brilliance of the sun reminds us of that divine illumination. We reconcile the inner and the outer by knowing that there is that intelligence within us, a wisdom that calls to gather our attention so that we can sense those moments, those experiential moments of growth and of healing. So there's something magnificent unfolding right now. There is healing happening in this room. There is the revelation of truth that is expanding what we see so that we can acknowledge that, yes, we have differences. And yes, there is more information to come. And yes, there is work for each of us to do. So we bring our gifts. We walk in God's glory with our heads held high, knowing there is work to be done on this planet, and that the most important work is that essence of love that desires to be expressed through us. We allow ourselves to be vessels for God to use. We allow that evolution to happen in our own mind and our own growth of our own consciousness. And we know and we rest confidently that as this is true for us as individualized expressions of God itself, that we are contributing to the collective whole, and therefore the upward expansion of consciousness of humanity as we have emerging and moving through challenging times into that which promises to follow. So I say thank you, God. Thank you, life, for all of these revelations that have touched our souls this day. For indeed, it is so refreshing to know that this is how life works. We say yes to doing our part, bit by bit, step by step, one intention at a time. I give thanks for this, and I release the words of this prayer into that dynamic law that brings all things to fruition. I let it be, and together we say, and so it is. Amen. Amen.
Grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. Everywhere I look and every face I see His love reflected, shining back to me. I just give thanks for all these simple things, the joy and peace that gratitude brings. That's why I'm grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for all the love that I have.
All right, thank you, Bradfords. Just a quick announcement to save the date. April the 1st, we're having a community day retreat. So please plan to join us. More information to come on that, but I wanted to just throw that out there to save the date. We are also, if you'd like someone to pray with you, and come up after service for prayer. And I think that's it. Oh, and one last thing that we are not passing the offering plates. We have donation box in the back of the room and on the way to Papke Hall and out in the bookstore. So we appreciate your donations and your gifts. So let's say our giving affirmation together. I live in a consciousness of good. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Please rise for our last song. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. Sing that with me. Oh, it feels so good to be alive. I ain't thinking about my problems. I'm living now. I'm living now. And I ain't gonna worry about the future. I'm living now. I'm living now. So put your hands up if you feel like having a good time. Put your hands up if you're sharing love with all. And raise your cup if you're hopeful for tomorrow. Put your hands up if you're ready to have some fun. Now sing it. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live in the moment. Feels good, don't it? Feels good, don't it? Only got one life, live. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. One more time. Oh, 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 it feels so good to be alive. Woo.
All right, so you guys, the community looks full. The church looks full. The house looks full. So thank you. It just feels so wonderful in here. All right, so let's say our closing affirmation together. Just repeat after me. As I look in the rear view mirror of my life, I appreciate my growth and new ways to express life. And so it is.